GoodFella's is an adaptation of the book Wise Guys by Nicholas Pileggi and tells the story of real-life mobster Henry Hill, his involvement with the mafia from an early age and eventually moving up in the crime world to gain wealth and respect. It was directed by Martin Scorsese, a critically acclaimed and well-decorated director. He is often considered to be one of the greatest directors of all time, and we're going to attempt to briefly evidence this claim by analysing Goodfellas. This film deals heavily with the relationship Henry has with his fellow mobsters, most importantly Jimmy Conway, Tommy DeVito and Paul Cicero. As the story is about Henry's life, it is mostly a linear story, with the film's main story starting in 1955 with a 13-year-old Henry Hill getting involved in the mafia by working at a cab stand. The film then moves through Henry's life, showing various key events such as the Air France robbery, meeting his wife and being involved in the murder of Billy Batts, to eventually 1980, where we see Henry has become a drug dealer, gets arrested and becomes an informant for the FBI. Goodfellas uses non-linearity in its opening. The first scene of the film takes place in 1970, with Henry, Jimmy and Tommy finishing off Billy Batts. Then it goes back to 1955, where it is all linear from then on. I think this was done as a way to get the audience immediately involved in the film, and getting them to ask questions. Who are these people, who did they kill, and why did they kill him? Once the film transitions to Henry's teenage years, the audience will wonder how and why this seemingly innocent kid turned to this life, and this will encourage them to watch the rest of the film. The opening also subverts the audience's expectation. If they had no idea what the film is about, they would think it's just three well-dressed men driving on an empty road at night, possibly coming back from work. It's not until the boot of the car is opened and the bloody body is revealed that the audience realises these people are anything but normal. Goodfellas is often cited as the most realistic depiction of mafia life. Other mafia films like The Godfather often romanticise the mob, idolising specific characteristics like family, honour and respect. Compare this with Goodfellas. The film shows the mafia for what they are: violent, sadistic criminals who use fear and intimidation to get what they want, and because people are so scared of them, they can get away with it. An example of this would be the scene where Tommy murders Spider. In this scene, we see Spider serving drinks with a bandage around his foot because Tommy had shot him several scenes before. Tommy starts poking fun at Spider, telling him to dance, and Spider replies with,
"Why don't you go fuck yourself, Tom?"
and everyone starts laughing. This joking mood changes when Tommy pulls out a gun and shoots Spider several times, killing him. This really illustrates how brutal these people are, especially Tommy, who just murdered an innocent person just for standing up for themselves. Tommy does not seem bothered about it. While everyone else in the scene is angry at Tommy, they don't have the typical reaction a normal person would after witnessing a murder, and Tommy just nonchalantly shrugs it off like it was nothing.
Fuck kids, I'll take the fucking hole, I don't give a fuck.
It's this realism that makes Goodfellas stand out among other mafia films. Goodfellas also makes use of a lot of point-of-view narration. This is done mostly through Henry Hill, but we also get some narration from his wife Karen. In some films, narration is used as a crutch to lean on because of bad writing. However, the narration in Goodfellas helps explain what's going on and gives more depth and detail to the characters. We hear Henry's thoughts and feelings, we feel like we know him. The narration also makes the film sound like Henry himself is telling the story to the audience, so the explanations of certain things make sense within this context. It could possibly be him talking to the FBI once he becomes an informant. During the courtroom scene at the end of the film, Henry completely breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to the audience. This shows Henry literally and metaphorically turning his back on mafia life, and he is addressing the audience directly because he is now one of them. Just a normal person living a normal life. This film was edited by Thelma Shoemaker, who has edited every one of Scorsese's films since Raging Bull in 1980. The film uses several different and interesting editing techniques throughout, one of the most notable being the freeze frames. These are always accompanied by narration. This is done as a way to make the audience aware that what just happened was a key moment in Henry's life and that it is important or will become important for the story. Another interesting technique is one that is used towards the end of the film, when Henry's on drugs. A lot of shots don't last very long before cutting to a new one. This rapid editing represents the paranoia and anxiety that Henry is feeling in this part of the film, and really puts the audience into his mind, making them understand how he's feeling. Montage is an editing technique for when lots of different shots, often at different locations and different times, are put together into a sequence. They are typically used to condense information and show the passage of time. Goodfellas has a montage to show everyone who got whacked by Jimmy. This montage helps show the audience Jimmy's brutality, as the people who he killed were his friends and associates, people he shared scenes with laughing and joking. It really illustrates to the audience how far Jimmy was willing to go in order to stay out of prison. There is another montage in the film, but this one is what's known as a photo montage, where still images are shown on screen. In this case, they are pictures from the main characters going on holiday and other events. This quick montage is used to show how close all the main characters are, and it's a good juxtaposition for the end of the film, where we see Henry betray all his friends by becoming an informant.
The cinematographer of GoodFella's, Michael Ballhaus, exaggerates the red lights of the car to foreshadow the amount of blood which is about to be shed throughout the narrative. The vibrancy of the red lighting and the fact that it covers the entirety of the characters' bodies informs the audience that the characters are very dangerous. From the very first scene, after the opening credits, the audience are greeted with visual metaphors. In this scene, the framing starts with an establishment shot of a below-average household and starts to pan until we see the gangster crossing the street. The crossing of the road is used as a device to inform the audience that the character of Henry is about to leave his typical family life and enter into a not-so-typical lifestyle, the lifestyle of a gangster. Within this scene, Martin Scorsese uses handheld camera work to establish the intensity that comes with sharing a below-average sized house with 9 other people. The director deliberately portrays the household in a chaotic way to foreshadow the violent world of being a gangster which Henry's character is about to involve himself in. Within this shot, the cinematographer creates a silhouette to represent Henry's character being reborn into this newfound wealth, respect and power. This shot educates the audience as it tells the audience that Henry's life as a real gangster is about to begin. Michael Ballhaus continues to use lighting to emphasise the dangerous lifestyle that comes with being a gangster. Within this scene, the characters are seen laughing, joking and drinking while surrounded by red lighting. The colour of the lighting is important as red represents danger, so this scene essentially portrays the characters being comfortable around violence and danger to the point where they are quite satisfied living in it. This long tracking shot is perfectly choreographed to show all of the intricate details such as doors being opened for Henry without actually cutting away. This long tracking shot portrays Henry's progression within the gangster world, as at the start of the shot he hands his keys to a young man which directly references where he started his career as a gangster. The shot concludes after Henry has a table delivered to his feet, which informs the audience about his current position in the gang and reinforces how far he has come since he initially joined. The handheld zoom creates an uneasy atmosphere for the audience to be a part of, which represents Henry's mindset change from when he entered the prison to now when he is leaving. Henry always believed loyalty was the best way to reach the top of the world of gangsters, but he found out that it can be a lot more lucrative if he were to run an operation on his own. This greed would essentially be Henry's downfall, and Scorsese uses the uneasy camera shot to show that Henry's new mindset is the change for the worst in the long term.
In general, all characters in GoodFella's wear suits not to only show their power and wealth, but to also represent how they think they look professional and how they think doing what they do is an acceptable lifestyle. One example of this is the long pointed collars on their suits that differ from the common formal attire that regular working professionals wore during this time. The slight differ in dress code represents society's view on gangsters as criminals, which contrasts with gangsters' views as they see themselves as an essential part of society. Scorsese uses characters as props to create subliminal route for audiences' eyeline to track. For example, in the scene where Tommy and Henry are in the bar with their associates, they are framed in the centre stage and surrounded by other characters behind them that are out of focus. All these components force the audience to acknowledge the importance of Tommy and Henry.
Two main types of sound in films, diegetic and non-diegetic. Diegetic is when the sounds the audience hear also exist in the film world. These include things like dialogue, sound effects, and ambient sounds. Non-diegetic sounds are when the sound has no on-screen source and characters don't hear it. The dinner scene with Jimmy and Henry is a good example, as it makes use of both diegetic and non-diegetic sound. The scene starts off with narration from Henry, which is non-diegetic. Then Henry and Jimmy start talking, which is dialogue and diegetic. In the background we also hear ambient sounds like knives and forks and chatter, which are diegetic.
But I had the feeling Jimmy was trying to sense whether I was going to rat him out to save my neck.
I've been telling you your whole life. Don't talk on the fucking phone, right? Now you understand? Huh? It's gonna be okay. I think you got a good chance of being the case.
While we don't hear it in this scene, the soundtrack of GoodFella's is one of the most important aspects. The film does not have its own soundtrack that was specifically made for the film, however it makes use of other music. This music is used very specially and deliberately. It is typically used to represent certain characters' feelings, relate to what's happening in the scene, and give film more depth. Martin Scorsese said he wanted the songs to comment on the characters in some way. He also wanted to make sure the songs stuck within their time period. A scene taking place in 1964 could only have music that would have been heard at the time period. This helps give the film a sense of progression, and the style of music changes and becomes more modern over the course of Henry's life. Here are a few examples of how music is used to create meaning. In the beginning of the film, the song Rags to Riches by Tony Bennett is played over the title sequence.
I know I'd go from rags to riches.
This represents and foreshadows Henry Hill's life, beginning in poverty, living in a small house in Brooklyn, and then moving up the mafia and the crime world, amassing large amounts of money, power, and respect. Another example of this would be the use of Donovan's Atlantis, which is used in the scene where Tommy DeVito brutally murders Billy Bats. This song is used because it contrasts the violent imagery with peaceful, quiet folk rock tune. It makes what the characters are doing seem more violent and malicious, and the soft music makes the audience focus on the brutal actions taking place. Also, songs relate to the love and joy that Henry and Karen share. First song used, Then He Kissed Me, by the Crystals, is a song about a girl being swept off her feet and falling in love. This matches Karen in the scene, as she is in awe of the connections Henry has and the respect people are giving him, so she starts to fall in love. The second song, Life Is But a Dream, is used during their wedding. It communicates the fact that Karen, now married to a rich, well-respected Henry, is now living in a dream.
That is my dream. Life is but a dream.
It is not difficult to see why Martin Scorsese has such a formidable reputation as a director. Martin's meticulous mind is perfectly coupled with his creativity, which makes him such a great director. The reason he has the reputation he does is because of the attention to detail he puts into every single scene. Shots sometimes don't seem to have a secondary meaning whilst watching initially, but after analysing the Scorsese body of work, it is evident that everything within the frame of each shot has importance and real meaning. The subtle nature behind Scorsese's camera angles and mise-en-scène give him the reputation he has today as one of the best directors on the planet.